Welcome to World Mission Topics, Lesson 12 for the third week of August 2022. I do not own the rights to this music. The topic is farewell prayers. The lesson text is coming out of Acts chapter 20, beginning at verse 36, and ending at Acts chapter 21, verse 6. The memory verse. And when he had said these things, he knelt down and prayed with them all. And that's Acts chapter 20, verse 36. The key terms for today's lesson: benediction, the utterance or bestowing of a blessing, especially at the end of a religious service. Piety, religious devotion and reverence. Watchman, a sentinel, a guard, metaphorically a pastor or elder. Our lesson text, beginning at Acts chapter 20, verse 36. And when he had thus spoken, he kneeled down and prayed with them all. And they all wept sore, and fell on Paul's neck and kissed him, sorrowing most of all for the words which he spake, that they should see his face no more. And they accompanied him unto the ship. Acts chapter 21, verses 1 through 6. And it came to pass that after we were gotten from them and had launched, we came with a straight course unto Coos, and the day following unto Rhodes, and from thence unto Patara. And finding a ship sailing over unto Phoenicia, we went aboard, and set forth. Now when we had discovered Cyprus, we left it on the left hand, and sailed into Syria, and landed at Tyre. For there the ship was to unlade her burden. And finding disciples, we tarried there 7 days, who said to Paul through the Spirit that he should not go up to Jerusalem. And when we had accomplished those days, we departed and went our way. And they all brought us on our way with wives and children, till we were out of the city. And we kneeled down on the shore and prayed. And when we had taken our leave one of another, we took ship, and they returned home again. Parting is such sweet sorrow, wrote the immortal bard. Shakespeare was right. Goodbyes are never easy. And when we have reason to believe that the separation may be permanent, goodbye may be sadly poignant. In the lesson text, we have a pair of bittersweet goodbyes. Paul was revisiting some of the churches he had nourished through his missionary journeys. He had set his eyes on returning to Jerusalem for the Pentecost holiday, despite the fact that at every stop on his goodbye tour, there were prophecies and warnings of suffering ahead for him. He knew he was facing arrest and possibly even death, so he might never see these saints again. Thus, these goodbyes had the sting of finality to them. Emphasis 1. The charge to the Ephesian elders. Paul's farewell address to the leaders of the Ephesian church is recorded in detail in Acts chapter 20, verses 17 to 35. We see that he was anxious for the future of this congregation that he so loved. He foresaw the rise of false teachers and damnable heresies, and charged the watchmen to stay vigilant. He made an eloquent defense of his own ministry. I have not shunned to declare unto you all the counsel of God. and concluded with a challenge for them to be gracious and supportive to the needy. And then, as affecting as his speech must have been, Paul devastated them with his benediction. The meekness of the apostle, his kneeling down in their presence, and the affection and pathos he doubtlessly showed in his prayer brought them to tears. They abandoned all reserve and fully embraced the emotions of the occasion. The elders savored their final moments with them, even escorting Paul right up to the ship. Emphasis 2. A stopover at Tyre. Traveling by sea, the apostles' entourage traced the coast of Asia Minor until they boarded a ship from Patara to Syria. They landed at Tyre, where the ship had to be unladen of its cargo. Meanwhile, the missionaries were greeted by another delegation of disciples. Paul and his companions stayed a week with those saints until the ship was ready to resume its journey. Then the saints of Tyre, women and children included, accompanied the missionaries back to the shore. There, everyone dropped to their knees in the sand to pray. It is such a touching picture. The simple piety of these families as they interceded for this hero of the faith. Emphasis 3. Praying because we're parting. These emotional encounters understandably led to prayer. When we have to part from one another for an extended amount of time, we still pray today. Believers petition God's grace and protection for one another on the road or in the air. They ask that the circle be unbroken, and that the angel of the Lord encamp round about the traveling saints. It is worth remembering that not all parting prayers are benign. For example, there was no benevolence in the farewell between the patriarch Jacob and his uncle Laban, when they prayed, "May the Lord watch between you and me when we are absent one from another." It wasn't so much a benediction, but a threat. Some goodbyes are good riddance. That is as sad as the goodbyes Paul endured, but in an altogether different way. Missions application questions. Question 1. Why were the Ephesian elders so emotional as they parted from Paul? Question 2. Entire Christian families accompanied Paul to the ship when he was ready to leave Tyre. Why might we be surprised by this fanfare? Question 3. What is the motivation for our parting prayers today? World Missions Prayer Points. Let us pray daily for loved ones who depart from us, that they will return to us safely. Let us pray for the brotherhood, that all is well until we meet again. Let us pray for the day when there will be no more goodbyes. The end. God bless you, and thank you for joining me today.